It's Easter. Happy Easter, everyone. I'm gonna be trying Hershey's Gold for the first time. So I began life in Lebanon at a time when there was officially a war between Christians and Muslims, but it was after the worst of it. There was lull in the war, and people were, both sides were starting to meld together again, and we stabilized the country, find peace, get out of that state of war. But it was still a state of conflict between Christians and Muslims, and thank goodness I did not experience the worst of it, but the first time I sensed fear was through a cross that was on the mountain where our house was, and I would go there and it would always be bent, always laying flat sideways. I didn't understand why. One day it would be straight, and immediately the next day it would be flat. When it was explained to me why it was bent all the time, was the first time I sensed that there was a shadow of hatred cast on the country, and it was sort of a pop in my bubble of harmony in my little fantasy world, perfect world. I felt something ominous beginning from that time, and the occasional times when it would have been straight for a few days were the times I felt glee, because it felt like the peace has finally came upon us. So the cross symbolized it all, and those few times were when it was upright were the best days for me, because I figured finally people made up, and they saw that they didn't have to fight each other. But yeah, the cross was the first time I experienced something was wrong, and I experienced discrimination. But and then there was an encounter with two roaming Muslim militiamen. It was only me, and I was going to the cross, but I'm just gonna say, without going through the whole story, that it was a miracle I was allowed to go alive from that encounter, and it left a lasting mark on me. Yeah, and that encounter was at that same cross, and it was a very scary one. Then I had a bit of a moment where it was a precarious school arrangement. We were moving out of town, and as to some schools, testing some schools, and over there all people mix of people of all faiths combined, and it was very volatile, to say the least, especially when the students gathered in the cafeteria, and that was definitely a very traumatic situation to be in. Now I'm strong in my belief, Christian belief, and I'm like I would stand up to it whenever possible. But on the other hand, I am pragmatic. So, when you get two sides together and both sides are very charged up, and the Christians being native to the country and feeling conviction that they were in the right and standing up for their convictions. They were very vocal and brave, and it was like a powder keg, and just waiting for a spark to make it blow up, so that any conflict between two of the students, for whatever reason, we create havoc, and there was no amount of adult supervision that could have stopped the mayhem. So it was very volatile, and when something between two of the students of different faith erupted, the whole mass of students engaged in a very dangerous brawl, destructive brawl, and it was all very stupid to me, because how you supposed to know one is a Muslim and the other is a Christian? Who are you supposed to attack? It just didn't make any sense to me. But so when the cafeteria erupted in a rumble, you get your adrenaline up and you want to participate on the side who you are with, and you want to win. But thank goodness I had the defense of being very little and able to excuse myself from the craziness. And imagining it is one thing, and being there is another, and being aware you're outnumbered 2-1. You at that moment you say to yourself, I think I'll step this one out. Doesn't make much sense to sacrifice yourself so meaninglessly. But those few Christians who stood up and fought for their beliefs, were the ones who, represented us and stood for us. And if they didn't, we probably wouldn't have anything in that country. But a lot of the Christians just stood on the side and did not risk life or limb in the fight. So I was glad to be able to just sit aside those 2 times when I had the unfortune of attending that school and being in the chaos, but soon afterward, thank goodness, we were migrated to Beirut, and things were much better there. But the next incident where I felt a bit of discrimination was when I would walk to our apartment in the building from the store, and there was a kid, and he was very pleasant. I was eager to encounter him on the walk back a lot of times. I liked him, but as soon as I told him I was Christian, he changed. He started being cold to me and acting very suspicious and mean, and I didn't understand it. It was kind of isolationist, and as a kid, it is a blow to your confidence in people, how much you can rely on them and their objectivity. But again, the adults were much more developed than the kids, and the one time his father realized what he was doing, he gave him a searing, and he stopped bothering me on my walks after that. After then, his parents, his father, did not like the discrimination against Christians, And yeah, it was that sort of situation where it was a bit uneasy all the time in that country, and because of the isolationism I felt, you could never really rely on anyone. Everyone was in the fight mode. I had to pave my own path, and just move on without the association of others, and be true to my conviction of representing what's right, and not judging people based on just characteristics that are really immaterial to how we can relate to each other, how we can associate with each other. Just because one identifies as one thing and another identifies as another, does not mean that you should have conflicting relationship, but or a hostile relationship. So it wasn't pleasant living in such an environment, and then we emigrate to Canada. And on the plane, the thing that was on the top of my mind was what religion Canadians were, and I was like praying, please let them be Christians. Yes, I didn't want any Muslims whatsoever, but I thought Muslims were everywhere. So when I asked my mother, she told me they really don't acknowledge religion much, but they are Christian, and my mother is a fanatic atheist, so I figured she was being biased in her interpretation. I didn't think people can be Christians and not care of their religion much. So to me, I took it as her asserting that they were Christian. And yeah, they were Christians with yeah, hard beliefs, and but it ended up being what my mother actually said. They are very light on it, on the faith. They really don't put it front and center, but they were at that time mostly Christian, and it was comforting. But like my mother said, faith was really secondary, and yeah, it was a pleasant experience being there in Canada at that time, when there wasn't much differences in beliefs, and the country was still how can I say, a bit over it was still a bit over trusting, and it was innocent. It was a very innocent country. Maybe it's still like that to an extent, but it was a very innocent and very nice, and we got treated very well at school, put into a program, and we were made to feel like one of the rest, and given special treatment to help with our language barrier, and yeah, we were just one of them, except we needed a bit of translations, and thankfully I knew a bit of French, which helped a bit sometimes. But then I went from that grade 2 class in one school, and then I moved to another school, grade 3, and that presented a whole different set of problems. But I was very grateful that that big shadow was left behind in Lebanon. No doubt I was privileged to forget about it and no longer be concerned about my safety, my right to life, and yeah, all that nonsense was left behind, and I could focus on my life for the first time ever. So yeah, that's what happened. And then in the other school, I had problems making friends, but eventually I made a friend with El Salvadorian. His name was Evis, and I didn't recognize his difference. To me, he was just like me. I didn't see a barrier between us, and we shared a common problem, with that being two bullies, the size, almost the size of adults. They were at least 5 feet tall and large boned, very scary. They were almost as big as adults, and we were just very short, but they were huge, and they bullied me. I don't know why, but they picked on me. Maybe because I was quiet, I couldn't defend myself, whatever, but yeah, they gave me a fright every time, made my life hell, and yeah, it was a trepid, defying time. Then one day, me and my brother were walking at the park, and he saw I was a bit of fidgety and reluctant to go onward, and eventually he got out of me the reason. This is my older brother, and he just went crazy. They were riding their bikes, the bullies, and I was afraid he would get hurt because they were even a bit taller than him, and I was no, don't do anything, but he was he was mad as heck, and he chased after them on their bikes, and he caught up to one and drop kicked the wheel of the bike, and you know, the guy flew off the bike, and he was like the Hulk, and yeah, he gave him a few punches, and screamed like mad, "If you ever touch my brother again." I'm not even sure they knew who his brother was. I don't even know what he was doing. Yeah, they ran like heck, both of them. They were scared real bad. They were white, and they just ran for their lives. But I realized at that moment I had something more problematic than the bullies, and it is my brother's temper. The bullies, I can forget about. They're not constantly in my life, but I realized something was really off with my brother, and it put me in a very difficult and probably troublesome situation in the future, and it did turn out that way. Me and that brother are on non-talking terms now. Yeah, but I recognized that at that time, that eventuality that was gonna happen between me and my brother. I tried to not make it go here, but people are the way they are. You try to change them, you can't. Anyways, the bullies backed off. After that, at least most of the time, they tried to revert to bullying me, but it didn't last long. I think they lost the habit and they were no longer interested in it, but it was still very scary for me, and I was stigmatized really from large people or them especially. I could never trust them again, and it affected my ability to socialize. So after that was over, I realized while that was occurring, actually, another thing crept up, and it was the way my friend would be with others who were culturally closer to him. And I noticed he would gravitate to other Latinos, Mexicans, and Italians, apparently Spanish and Italian European languages have a lot of commonalities. He taught me that, and yeah, he would just gravitate to people who he was more closer to culturally, and I didn't understand why. I thought I was his friend, and you know, why should that be a bearing to on relationships? Why would that automatically draw him away from me and to people he didn't have a past with, and didn't have an active relationship with? And it bothered me a lot. And you know, throughout my elementary school years, I would see the same thing with other ethnicities, especially the East Asian ones. Back then, Filipinos were the predominant East Asians in Canada. They're Catholics, and you know, they had a large presence in the schools, and yeah, they would assemble together and only associate with each other speaking their language, and it bothered me. Still bothers me, and yeah, that mentality. I mean, I don't seek out other Arabs or Lebanese. It's that discrimination that was the source that I learned to be immune of. I mean, take it out of me back in Lebanon. So I treated that condition that I had treated already, and I didn't think it was right. But yeah, and East Asians, and then there was Chinese who also grouped together, and at one time we had an encounter with some, and they beat my brother and my friend up. So that man, mob mentality, tribal mentality really is illogical to me, and turns me off. Then we moved to another school, and there I encountered a different kind of discrimination, and was body type, and this time I was part of the offenders. It was one obscenely obese kid in my classroom, and he was picked on often, and at one time something happened, and during recess in the yard where it was a greenery and under a tree, we just got into a scuffle, and I don't know how, but I beat him. I dodged his attacks, and it was a pretty spectacular beatdown from me, and I was very lucky, I must admit. It ended up with him being more made fun of and demeaned, and I contributed to his harassment a lot, and that's one of my biggest regrets. Yeah. Right now I'm a very small guy. At that time I thought being his size was shameful, and now I realize being big has a lot of perks and advantages, and yeah, it's really to navigate civilized society in my size, and society privileges his size more than they do my size, than it does my size. And yeah, back then we didn't know any better. We thought his humongousness was grotesque, and yeah, it was just a very bad misperception on our part as little kids. He was actually fated to be in a position of dominance in this society, while I was fated to be in a position of inferiority. But yeah, that's when size took a hold of my consciousness, and I didn't really want to be big. I had that chance to. I was weightlifting when I was 10, but imagining I might become this grotesque beast no one wants to talk to or befriend, made me stop pursuing weightlifting or wanting to be big, really. I was happy to be small. And yeah, then while I was living at that house, we had moved from where I was going in that previous school, and we moved to a new house, and I encountered a black kid. He was from America, and he was adopted by white parents, and it seemed very strange yet beautiful at the same time. It was an amazing harmony, and I felt for him. I hoped he could adopt them, be at peace with being with white parents as much as they are at peace with him being their kid. And I was at that time conscious through television about the sensitivities to race with black people, but he was being mean to me and favoring my brother, who is surprisingly brown. I don't know why, but my brother is one of my brothers, not the oldest brother I told you about, but my second oldest brother is brown. And yeah, he was favoring my brother for some reason, and he was disrespecting me a lot, the black kid, and eventually I had enough, and I started being hostile to him, and yeah, I threw some, we got into a fight, and think he won the first time, I won the second time, and I threw some racist insults at him, just out of anger, and I regretted them. I used to go to his house. He used to have uh, those arcades, ping pong machines, and he would want us to put quarters in there, even though it was his machine. But when he wanted to play, he would use the same quarter time after time. But yeah, so after insulting him with racist insults, yeah, I felt really bad. We kind of left on neutral terms with each other. He went his separate ways, and the thing I noticed with him was that he would hang out with high school students, and it seemed like he was in a very precarious situation. You know, it made me wonder why he would hang out with kids older than him. And you know, I suspect him getting into shady activities with those kids. He was just he seemed like he didn't know how to fit in, and he was going to the lowest common denominator. So eventually, after beating that fat kid, or to be politically correct, obscenely obese kid's bum, I became much respected in the school, and I began being treated like I was the strongest. So the kids started treating me with respect. Those in my same level, and yeah, the bullying became my right. I had a monopoly on it for my grade all throughout that school, and that went through the rest of my elementary school years. So eventually I was the one considered the most strongest in the school, and all the students feared me, both large and small. and there was a particularly tall student in my classmate, a redhead, and yeah, he took a bit of tongue lashings from me and harsh treatments. Yeah, I generally considered myself the strongest student uh, in in the school, even though I wasn't the tallest. It was just I suppose a lack of knowledge on the part of everyone, of the young people. Uh, they thought everyone just assumed I was the strongest because I was able to beat anyone who was my height in fights or shorter, and I was also able to beat the obese students, and yeah, it was just assumed I was the strongest, and I was able to practically push my weight around. And that redhead I treated pretty harshly, but I was very benevolent. I enjoyed holding the title of being supreme bully, but I never really exercised my power, and which kind of gave a sense of calm and just stability to the school, because I refrained from using my reputation to rain havoc, and I just kept it idle. So there was a lot of appreciation and somewhat of a reliance in me school-wide, because of the general calm and gentleness that I brought school-wide. So I was very popular both with the students and the teachers. And yeah, it all goes back to being principled and not discriminatory. and the want to live and let live. But that redhead I mistreated somewhat, and at the end, at the end of the graduation year, the last day, I came to a revelation of how weak I actually was. But before then, so it was mostly Christians, and then there was two Muslim Egyptian students introduced into our class, and a sister and a brother. I had a bit of a conflict with them because they wouldn't recognize my authority, and it was the last year of school, and the brother actually gave me a bit of a whooping on the school bus, but it didn't stick. My reputation continued. People assumed that I beat him, and they really wanted me to beat him so bad because they were different. They were brown, and really, really brown. They had this curly hair, black hair. They were so different in every way, and it was kind of threatening. So I was beat by him, and in the bus, after I lost, I had my head down as though I lost, my whole world was over. And then I came to the realization that the responsibility of being the strongest in the school has been lifted, and it was like a large weight dropped off my shoulders, and by the time everyone left the bus, I was the last one to be dropped off the bus. I was inwardly very gleeful, although outwardly I still had my head down. And when everyone left the bus, I was almost laughing, I was smiling. I was almost jumping with joy, had a big smile on my face. I was so happy, and I left hopping off the bus in the light, and yeah, and just glee. But yeah, it didn't stick much. My reputation was just assumed because most of the people didn't see him beat me, and there was a question mark on whether the fight would have been different if it wasn't on a very unstable bus, and I might have had the disadvantage based on my position. I was facing backwards from the front of the bus while he was facing forwards, so I might have had a disadvantage. But anyways, that was another situation where discrimination took a hold of played a role in my life. And then the end of the year came, and it was time to move on. It was the last day of school, and the redhead and me, we were just playing arm wrestling between us, the students, and the redhead was very tall, and he was much bigger than me. So I challenged him. He was very reluctant to, and the first time he easily beat me with practically no effort, and I was amazed. And I was even at that time suspicious how much more powerful he was than I was. I was yeah, it was kind of hovering in my mind. Something was up. I miscalculated something, and maybe size does matter when it comes to strength. And so I challenged him again. He didn't want to, and no, he tried to refuse the second challenge, and yeah, but eventually I convinced him again, and despite all my effort, despite of me giving it my all, he seemed to easily beat me, although he tried to pretend that I was winning somewhat, but I saw he was only pretending, and he was a very good student, straight A student, and I realized maybe I was very delusional. Maybe it was to their advantage. I took the role of the bad kid while they could have focused on being the smart kid instead of taking advantage of their physical advantage over the other students. So I became aware, very aware at that moment that it was all an illusion, and I was nowhere as strong as I thought as I was, and a lot of them did not exercise their power, their abilities, and they were smart not to, and I was foolish to think I was stronger than I really was. I was foolish not to recognize how much stronger the taller people were than I was. So then came high school, and in high school I went to the baddest neighborhood in Toronto. Maybe because I liked the independence it represented. It was a place where authority was not prominent, and it was a place where kids had more freedom, and it was risky, but it on the other hand, it was independent, and nobody wants to mess with nobody there. So the kids were more assertive. They were my type. That's the way I viewed it. They were their own individuals as I was, and they were brave. They were taking chances being there, and I don't know if it has to do with where I came from, the country I came from, why I was attracted to it. But yeah, I went there to the worst neighborhood in Toronto, and I really also wanted to escape my elementary school years, which in a lot of ways was a nightmare to me. I want to escape the identity I had established, and I knew there was very little likelihood anyone from my elementary school would go to that place because of the reputation of that place. So I wanted to redefine myself, and going there gave me that opportunity. But before going there, there was this movie, Honey, I Shrunk Up the Kids, and yeah, it kind of piqued my sensitivity. It was replaying on TV, and it piqued my sensitivity to just people in general, and there was this scene where he was about to eat his microscopic children, and that had a great impact on me and made me think, oh my goodness, what if I blindly eat people, just cause harm by not being too perceptive in our premature minds. It seemed like a really realistic thing that, back then, when you're very small, you don't know what's possible and what's not, and it seemed like a real possibility to me. So it kind of piqued my sensitivity, that movie, and I wanted to pinpoint everything that could cause harm to people. Take a close-up look, and avoid them. So I would I started feeling very sensitive, empathetic towards blacks, or every, but blacks in particular. I think they were on TV a lot, the race issues, and yeah, I just want to be, I want to avoid eating microscopic people. So, figuratively speaking, um, I went to, just before starting high school, I went to watch Casper the Ghost in the theaters with my sister, and there was a black family there, father, mother, and son and daughter, small children, and I was watching the movie beside them. They were a row in front of me, and to the left a few seats, and it's Casper the Ghost. It has a lot of whiteness to it, so I was particularly conscious about their situation, how they were receiving the movie, especially the kids, the boy, and I was very aware in my mind whether they could relate to anything in the movie or not, because it was so white. And I so wanted some black actors in there, just so they could feel the movie a bit, just so that they could feel a bit of belonging. And I tried to delude myself that they can enjoy it as much as I could without there being any blackness in the movie. But near the end, when Casper really reveals his identity as a human being, he takes the sheet off, whatever. It turns out to be a white boy, and the black boy just he kind of did not hide his great disappointment. He was deflated, and he voiced that he thought Casper would be black, and it stuck with me. I was hurt for him. I felt bad he couldn't enjoy the movie for that. Just for there not being black people in it. Uh, so yeah, I had some empathy, and I entered high school being very sensitive to black people, very empathetic, and you know, I tried to go out of my way to be polite to them, and you know, treat them with kindness, and just be very nice to them. And I experienced black people, black students personally, 4 times. Very impactful experiences with them. The first one was the first two were very cool. One of them was really tall. It was in my grade 9 class, and he was like one of those basketball players. Most of the black students were cool, but the ones I had personal experience with varied. They were funny, charismatic, but yeah, that one in grade 9, there was two, and particularly one I had a closer association with. He was, they were like basketball players, and he had an afro with that comb sticking in it, and yeah, he was very cool guy, and he treated me with as much gentleness as I treated him, and yeah, he was very, very sympathetic to me, and but he eventually moved out to another school. Then there was another, he was a cool kid, nerdy but cool, and yeah, he had a lot of girls, just yeah, he was very attractive, and he was spectacular, and funny, articulate, you know, his mind together, and yeah, like I said, he was whole. He got his girls, and then there was another one. This one was a quiet, nerdy one, but before him, before I made a relationship with him, there was this other black student who was in a grade higher than mine, but we shared the same class, and we had to do projects together, and he made me hate my life for a few months. At first, he was delightful. I liked him a lot, and he was amazing to interact with, and he was very kind to me. But I think one day on the bus, I unintentionally ignored him when he was trying to tell me hi, trying to speak to me. I think it was I was very fatigued. It was in the morning. It was a very difficult time waking up in the morning, doing your homework. It's very strenuous sometimes, school. Maybe I did an all-nighter at that time, that day, but I think I completely ignored him. And after that day, he acted like I was invisible, and it made me feel so demeaned, and it was a horrible experience. It was like I didn't even exist. He looked right through me. He didn't hear me. He didn't see me, no matter what. And he just made my life hell for a few months. It was very hurtful how he treated me, and despite me trying to be nice and everything, and I tried, I held my ground. I stayed nice, and but it affected me, and I did this weird things because of it. But I was just glad I didn't have to deal with him continuously, because he was in an older class, and it was just a one-time thing. I was just so grateful for that. It would have been devastating if I had to be in the same class as him. It was very dehumanizing how he treated me. And then there was that nerdy black student I tried to spark a friendship with, a partnership with, and we were starting to brew something together, but he was extremely mean. He would just throw insults out of left field. I would just be asking regular things, trying to talk to him regularly, and he would just burn me with insults and snap, and it was horrible. It was very painful, and that continued to that was the last 2 years of my high school. I had to deal with him, and he was very bad. He was very quiet and a good kid in school, but personality-wise and attitude-wise, everything-wise, else, he was nasty as heck, and very bad experience. He told me it was the result of his family, what he was dealing with at home, but you don't have to be like that. You know, you don't have to mistreat people if you're experiencing something bad at home or with others. It doesn't justify it. Then I had a re-encounter with the student I mentioned, that tall guy with cool guy with an afro in grade 9. I went to summer school at a different high school, and he was there. He was in the same class as me, and he must have been observing me quite closely without me realizing it. And one time he confronted me in the hallway. I didn't even know. I didn't even expect it. I was just. To me, it was a good day. Another day. Yeah. I was just walking obliviously, and kind of in an upbeat mood, and then he just there standing in front of me, and he says, "Hey, you got to wake up and start living your life. You've got to stop lying to yourself." And he stabbed my soul with that. That hurt, that was very hurtful. And I was taken back. I was completely in shock. I didn't expect it, and coming from him, it made it doubly bad. So I got really mad. I got really mad at him. He hurt me a lot. It was a hurtful thing he said to me, and maybe because that's how I was feeling, I was constantly playing in my mind, and what am I doing? I was being a good kid all the time, but I want to be let out more, talk more, socialize more, but I was subduing myself, and it just went right through my heart, and he was right, but it hurt, and I just lost it. After he said that, he walked away quickly, but I stood there still for a second in shock, and then I just blacked out, and I went through the hallway in a rage, and throwing fists in the air, and looking, trying to hunt him down, and even though I knew I had no chance against him, but I went everywhere looking for him, you know, I just want to take him down. But thankfully I couldn't find him anywhere. So the next soon afterwards, we were in a library together, and lo and behold, he was in my group. I didn't know what I was gonna do. Yeah, I thought I might just fly over the table and rip him apart, but yeah, he was very cool. After he talked very uh, nicely towards me, and I realized maybe I took it the wrong way, or maybe I should just forget about it. I didn't ask him about it, although I think I wanted to. But yeah, we're in a group in the same table, and yeah, I based on his how he approached me, I just let it go, and it was a sort of a relief. And then yeah, I left high school, and I was looking for work. By that time, my empathy towards black people, my point of view changed completely, and I stopped seeing people by race. I just started seeing people as one, and to me, what I was fed through the media and TV and everything was just an illusion. Race is just an illusion, and it really didn't factor in the real world. That's the conclusion I came from, and particularly it was that black student, the nerdy one, who was mean to me, that made me shed this burden off. But after high school, I looked for work, and I went to one place, and the one who was in a manager position was Hispanic, and I was taken aback. He seemed to be a new immigrant, and I didn't think it was possible for them to be in such prestigious positions. To me, they were intellectually inferior, and it was a huge surprise wake up call uh, that Hispanics can have such a high position in a technological company. It was a printing company. You know, I didn't even know they had that level of education in their countries, and it was the real world, something uh, completely knocked my world off balance. You know, everyone in my mind had a position based on their ethnicity. And and then there was this black guy. He was on top of an investment firm, and that also took me aback. And my world, as I saw it, was crumbling. No longer was I on the top as I thought I was. And yeah, the way I saw things, I took things for granted. I thought I was privileged, more smarter than them, and lo and behold, here they are, you know, light years ahead of me, and they weren't contemptible. They were respectable, and based on my experience with high school, I expected exactly the opposite. So it was a big wake-up call, and then had an encounter with a Chinese guy on the bus stop, and he was fatherly, and he was he stepped up to help me, and completely my world was just crumbling all around. I had to recollect myself. The white privilege I was so relying on turned out to be fantasy. I know I'm not white, but at that time I considered myself white, but it's just a technical difference mostly, and I think I can easily pass as white. But yeah, it turned out that positions of authority weren't reserved only for people as myself. The white people and yeah, also we weren't the most we weren't the only ones who had a higher thought, higher sensitivity, humanity, which was indicated to me by the actions of that Chinese man who helped me, fatherly actions, and the lines between countries started to dissolve to me. I forgot to mention a few incidences of discrimination that I delivered now between the ages of 9, from the age of 9 upwards to 2 to 3 years. I was a very nasty kid. I discriminated. I looked down at my brother because he was brown and he wore glasses. At that time, I didn't wear glasses in elementary school, all throughout elementary school, although I needed glasses. But yeah, I discriminated against him because he was brown and of the glasses. And yeah, he acted like every other brown person. He gravitated to other brown races. I'm not sure if it was just a natural thing or due to him being discriminated against, but yeah, he was more drawn to brown people and black people. Yeah, and I found that offensive, but and I also was very bad to a mentally challenged girl. I abused her, not sexually, but verbally, and maybe a bit physically. Not very bad, but slightly, just maybe pushing and things like that. I don't remember the circumstances, but maybe she used to get in my way or things like that, and yeah, I would get her out, try to get her away from me because I didn't like how she looked. I discriminated by looks, and I also discriminated against a deaf family that were living upstairs in the same house, and the whole family was deaf. It was a genetic condition, and yeah, I discriminated badly against them due to their physical handicap. Made fun of them. Yeah, was very nasty to them. Made them cry. It was I was horrible. And but the homeless, I didn't act horrible to them. I didn't feel like they deserved to be treated badly, although I sort of tried to go that direction, but my heart didn't allow me. There was an incident where us kids, me, my friend, and my brother had to call a cop on a homeless guy. We picked on him a little, but I felt bad for doing that. In that situation, I was able to feel his misfortune, and I regretted his situation and treated him with disrespect. And it showed me thinking about how he was, his position. It made me feel real uncomfortable, and it concerned me a bit that someone can end up in his position in this society with no help and nowhere to go, and just on a downward spiral, and scared me a bit. But after that one incident with that guy, I didn't feel the pull to be contemptuous with homeless people. And so I was very nasty all around, but it was dependent upon how you were physically, and I was nasty until I regained my faith in Christianity. I read the Bible, and everything flipped upside down, and gentleness became manifested in me, and it was as quick as flipping a light switch. I turned from a nasty kid to a very gentle and caring human being, and it was all due to Christianity. But my faithfulness remained until 2013. I'm born in 1981. So until that time, I remained very faithful, but my faithfulness waned substantially after then, but my humanity did not. And my faith in Christianity has been going down steadily ever since. I won't go into the reasons why, but you don't want to mess with me now. I discovered over time the course of my life, and since coming out of high school, and what I told you about finding those people of different races in high up positions in companies, that people really are all the same and discriminate the same way, and I truly believe the biggest discrimination, and probably has always been, is based on the height and gender. And if you're a man and you're short in this day and age, you're the one who's most discriminated against. You are treated very harshly, and in a prejudicial way. You're not treated in the same manner as people of taller stature, and just very discriminatory, and I'm not sure if it matters what color you are, but definitely the short white man gets the short end of the stick. And it's but I think I know the formula for discrimination, and people discriminate based on a class of characteristics. And so uh, people group different characteristics and put them in a class, like color, height, gender. They put them in a class, and then they just treat that class that way. And to give you an example, it's like beautiful girls, and you as a guy would treat them as all being in love with you, and regardless whether they are your girlfriend or not, they're that class of human beings are the same person, and you are in love with that particular class of human beings. I'm not sure, I don't mean to project here my own mindset. I hope I'm not projecting, but I'll let you to decide. But yeah, so you got this class of beautiful girls, and you treat them as though you have a romantic relationship with this class of girls, and it's very awkward and weird. Similarly, with shorter guys, skinny guys, not hefty guys, you treat them as intellectually inferior, physically inferior, as inferiors in every way, and it doesn't matter what they work or whatever. They are just inferiors, and you have to go out of your way not to be disrespectful to them, and not to be prejudiced and treat them any differently than other people, because this is a class of people, and that's how you approach this class. That's how you have conditioned yourself to approach this class of people. And to me, that is the nature of discrimination today. And it's race is really not very relevant. You treat tall black women all in the same manner, and because they represent a particular class, and black women who are shorter, who are about your height, and of a different face, of a different shape, weight class, you treat them another way. And yeah, you always expect this class of people to behave in a certain way, and that's the way. It doesn't matter the color, that's the way people approach other people. And it's just maybe to simplify their life and to simplify how they relate to other people. So that's my ultimate conclusion on discrimination today. Now let's get to the testing of this chocolate bar. I seen this being promoted on YouTube, Yahoo quite often, Yahoo videos, and it looked very attractive, the commercial that is in the commercial. And yeah, it's not as gold colored as it seemed, as you can see, but yeah, the commercial was very convincing. I decided to get it and try it out. The thing that particularly surprised me is the very few ingredients it has, and they're all common ingredients, and none of them yeah, are artificial. Just maybe 10 ingredients, a dozen ingredients or so, and that's what surprised me the most. It's basically, here, let me read the ingredients to you: sugar, modified palm oil and modified vegetable oil, milk ingredients, peanuts, wheat flour, lactose, lecithin, salt, malt, soybean oil, yeast. It's all stuff you might have in your kitchen. That's it. Surprisingly, it is healthier than most chocolate bars, and it is basically just a bar of solidified fat, and that's what this chocolate bar is, just a bar of solidified margarine. And yeah, it's much healthier than all others. So I mean, most others, even though it doesn't have any chocolate in it or anything special, it's just margarine. Very surprising, and this is supposedly revolutionary based on the commercial. So let's take a look. It's already cracked. smells like peanut butter, and it says it's pretzel and peanut flavor. That's how it tastes. And let's give it a shot. Very nice. Surprisingly very good. Well, this is how they make white chocolate with just fat. But they put a lot of artificial ingredients and mumbo jumbo ingredients. And this one is just naturally and spectacular. Definitely 2 thumbs up. And yeah, just surprising, the simple chocolate bar. That's its main feature. It's not too bad for you at all, and it tastes as good, if not better, than most chocolate bars. So it's hard margarine, and it's better than lots of chocolate bars. Spectacular. So there you go. It's worth it. Worth getting.